Hello, my name is Ishita Raghuvanshi, and I'm going to be discussing the history of life using the geological timescale as a framework. The timescale was created by identifying, comparing, and dating strata, and the history of this Earth is split into multiple periods, all with a multitude of designations. The largest unit of time is an eon, which is around 1 billion years. There are a total of 4 eons: Hadean, Archean, Proterozoic, and Phanerozoic. The first 3 are collectively referred to as the Precambrian period. Hadean, which is where the solar system was forming within a cloud of dust and gas known as the solar nebula. This eventually spawned asteroids, comets, moons, and planets. However, the earliest life forms aren't dated until the Archean eon, which is after the Hadean eon. This is because the Hadean eon had extreme weather which could not sustain life. During the Archean eon, we see a series of complex chemical reactions in the young oceans which transformed carbon-containing molecules into simple living cells that did not require oxygen to live. Instead, they made energy out of sulfur and other elements. Stromatolites appeared, and these were colonies of photosynthesizing cyanobacteria which released oxygen into the atmosphere. This impacted future life on Earth. We also see extreme weather, so we have heat and extreme saltiness. Next, we have the Proterozoic, which is where multi-celled organisms appeared. The stromatolites remained common, and we start to see eukaryotes, which are cells with nucleus. Modern plate tectonics became active, and the ancient cores of continents moved over wide areas of the globe, accumulating smaller fragments of crust and sometimes colliding with other large landmasses. We see the extinction of the bacteria from the Archean eon, which required extreme conditions that did not exist at this time. Next, we move to the Phanerozoic eon, which is comprised of 3 main periods: the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. This eon spans from Cambrian to Quaternary, which is current times. The Cambrian period is dubbed the Age of the Trilobites, and this is where the Cambrian explosion occurred. Many marine invertebrates appeared, and we see the first vertebrates and the earliest primitive fish. There's mild climate, and the supercontinent left behind by the previous eons, the Rodinia, begins to break down. We also see the Cambrian substrate revolution, which showed a shift in animal burrowing as animals began to move from grazing on top of microbial mats to creating bilateral burrows within a more soupier substrate. Next, we have the Ordovician period, which is where we start to see primitive plants appear on land. We start to see corals, seaweed, and fungi, and we see the Great Ordovician biodiversification event, which is characterized by sustained increase of marine biodiversity. There's also a lot of volcanic activity, and a huge extinction event takes place, likely due to glaciation. We move to the Silurian period, which is where the first jawed fish and insects appeared. There is high sea levels at this time, and we see brachiopods and the first vascular plants on land. Vertebrates and plants experienced prominent evolutionary changes, and there was a stable and warm temperature due to the high levels of CO2, resulting in warm, shallow seas and glaciers almost disappearing. Next, we have the Devonian period, dubbed the Age of the Fishes, where there is diverse and abundant fish and plants, tetrapods and amphibians, and we also start to see sharks, bony fish, new insects, and there's a mass extinction that wipes out about 30% of all families, likely due to glaciation or meteorite impact. We move to the Carboniferous, which is where many new plants and animals begin to appear. Amphibians become more common, and there's a lot of continental collisions. We see very large arthropods and a fall of tropical rainforests. There's also a significant gap in fossils, likely due to the drop in oxygen levels and reduction in carrying capacity. We move to the Permian period, which is the age of amphibians, and the amphibians and reptiles dominate. Gymnosperms are dominant in plant life, and they diversify due to extensive deserts and seasonal rain cycles. The Mesozoic era is the age of reptiles, and we see rifting continental activity opposed to the converging continental activity in the Paleozoic. We have the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous during this era. And at this time, we see the first dinosaurs and mammals. We see many small mammals and large reptiles, and diversification and success of gymnosperms, and later angiosperms. Next, we have the Paleogene, which is where the apes begin to appear. Mammals start to become more complex. We see the age of birds, so we see the first large mammals, primitive primates, and the mammals slowly become more common. We start to have rodents, primitive whales. There is a minor extinction, but we see pigs, deer, cats, rhinos, and grass becomes more common. And there's worldwide tropical rainforest. Next, we have the Neogene, which is characterized by global cooling and rising herbivores. The tropical environment ceded to deciduous forests, and the herbivores diversified due to increased grasslands. Hominids develop and insects evolved into more modern forms, and there's numerous land bridges that form in notable mountain ranges in East Asia, Western Europe, and Western Americas. We then move to the Quaternary, which is the age of the man. In the Pleistocene epoch, we see the first humans evolve. We see mammoths, mastodons, saber-toothed cats, and other megafauna. There is a mass extinction that occurs about 10 KYA, and this is probably due to the end of the Ice Age, which impacted climate and vegetation. And then we have the Holocene epoch, which is modern human civilization. Switching gears, let's talk more about birds as the focus of this event. Birds likely evolved from small carnivorous dinosaurs of late Jurassic, and we can use the missing link to tell the connection between birds and dinosaurs, and this is the Archaeopteryx. The bird-like dinosaurs shared unique features to theropods, which made it a link between birds and reptiles, and several specimens were found in the Lagerstätten-Solnhofen limestone in Bavaria, Germany. Another link is the Ornithischians, which were herbivorous dinosaurs, and the orientation of the hip bones was very similar to birds. However, this is a more weak connection to that of Archaeopteryx being connected to theropods and birds. Now, looking at the evolution of birds from theropods, it's likely that the feathers were short hair-like projections that were used for insulation. There's likely changes in the wrist joints, which eventually evolved to allow wing joints to create thrust, and the fusion and reduction of bones likely created efficiency for flight. The common ancestor of all birds was likely in the late Cretaceous. Overall, all these pieces of evidence show that birds and dinosaurs are very closely connected. Switching gears, let's talk about a more overarching question, and which is, why should we even study evolutionary history? Why did we talk about the geological timescale in the first place? Well, the evolution is a unifying principle of biology, and it can be used to understand more complex fields like genetics. We can also use evolution as a medium to understand and find solutions to modern biological problems. For instance, combating COVID-19. So evolution is very relevant and should be studied. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed this summary of the geological timescale.